All right, looks like we're good to get started here. Hello, everybody. Rob with WePayOffDebt.ca. Hope you're doing well. Really want to bring you some value today around getting out of debt, getting control of your money. And to start with, let's start a little bit about our background, right? Where are we coming from? We got married quite young, 2005. I was, I guess, 23, 22 even, hadn't quite turned 23 yet. And we were both campus students, and we were living on very, very little. And we continued to live on very, very little for a couple of years until we both graduated. Now we both have professional degrees, and at that point we got jobs and we started making some very reasonable money, and we enjoyed it. Right? We'd gone so long without making almost any money that to start making some money was very, very nice. And that went on for a few years, which was great. But eventually we wanted to have kids and wanted to buy a house. And so we started looking for a house. We started trying to get pregnant. And they both happened around the same time. We got a house in 2008, the fall of 2008, and we got pregnant in late 2010. So within a few years there. And and what we did is we wanted to buy the house first, and we wanted to have a baby in the house. And so what we did is we bought the house, but the thing was, the house, we really didn't even try to do the wise thing financially. We let the bank tell us more specifically, we let the bank tell us what the wise thing to do was. They told us what we could afford, and we took it, right up to the top that they'd offer to us. So we got a 0 down 40-year mortgage where the payment was somewhere in the range of 40 to 45% of our take-home pay. It's crazy. Okay. Then we fast forward. We now have our first baby, and even with the high house payment, we had still been paying off debt at a reasonable rate while we were living in the house and things like this. But and so what we did is when we had our first child, we made the plan that we say, okay, my wife's going to go on mat leave for a year. If you don't know, that's how it works here in Canada. My wife went on mat leave for a year. And but when it happened, her pay was cut down to 55% of the original, so a big pay cut. And she was even making more than me at the time. And so we put that together, and our lifestyle had to change. But we came up with this plan where we said, no, we don't want our lifestyle to change. Beforehand, we were paying off debt at a pretty good rate. So what we'll do now is we'll just purposely go into debt. Yeah, this was our plan. We will purposely go into debt, and after the year, when you go back to work, we'll pay off the debt as we've been paying off. Right? It'll be great, no problem. Problem is, we didn't even think about daycare. Daycare did not enter our numbers at all, and so thus began a long, long time of not paying off that debt. What happened was in that year off, we accumulated about $12,000 in a line of credit, and then from that point on, 2011 until 2016, when we started this whole process, we in fact not only did we not make progress, and that was our goal, we wanted to make progress on that particular line of credit debt, we went substantially negative. Of course, shortly after the baby was born, we just had to buy a van, because there are no safe vans. Don't you know there are no safe vans that are not brand new? So we bought a brand new van and put it all on debt, like 8-year loan, minimum payments possible, and proceeded to beep bop along. And all the time, we're just not seeing any traction. We really we're not worried about the van loan. We're not worried about our student loans. The $12,000 from the mat leave, we're like, yes, we're gonna hit that. We're gonna hit that hard. And from 2011 till 2016, so I guess that's 5 years later. Not only had we not made progress, but we'd gone negative. At that point, it was about $17,000 line of credit. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of perspective how bad we were with money. So at that point, fall 2015, I guess it was. So coming into 2016, fall 2015, I discovered Dave Ramsey, and the spring of 2016, we decided to go all in. And when I say all in, I don't mean all in, because what I mean all in is we're like, yes, let's do the program. But we didn't do the program. It was this thing about where I felt I was smarter than Dave Ramsey. And I'm like, let's do, and a lot of people refer to this as Dave-ish, where I'm just going to do the parts of what he says that I like, and I'm just going to leave out the parts I don't like. So for instance, I kept using a credit card. Okay, he's very anti-credit card, and what that looked like was, but I knew, and I really wanted to, and I loved budgeting. Budgeting is something I'm good at, something I enjoy, something I have always loved spreadsheets. Right, I'm a nerd like that. And so on the Dave Ramsey plan, you got to make a budget every single month. And so I would sit down and I would try to make this budget, and nothing worked. I would make a budget one month and we wouldn't stick to it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's how it's been my entire life. So let's try it again. We'd make another budget and we wouldn't stick to it. We'd make another budget and we wouldn't stick to it, over and over and over, for literally the whole time. In fact, a lot of the ways we ended up getting out of debt was I picked up extra work. I brought in more income, and trying really hard to budget without much success. Okay. So this is the thing. We had a ton of struggles with budgeting. And here's the picture though. So you can see there, January 2011, this is a graph of our, this is a graph, of our debt load. And you can see that it goes up and up and up, and it goes down and up, and it's starting to go down by January 2016, but it's not down yet, but after we got on the Dave Ramsey plan, we did manage to bring it all up. Move the video out of the way, brought it down to zero by October 2017. So we paid off we paid off $41,000 and built up a $21,000 emergency fund, all in 25 months. So it was a massive turnaround. But that said, even while we were doing it, I could never get budgeting down. So this is part of the reason I started this site, is because I really want people to know what's possible. Because if I knew then, if I knew at the start of this what I know now, things would have been completely different. And in fact, I think we would have paid off our debt even faster. Okay. So if you don't know much about Dave Ramsey, let me give you a little bit of a background about him here. Picture smaller. He's a personal money management expert. He's on the radio in the southern states. He's out of Tennessee. He has six best-selling books. And in his past, what happened to him, he was a real estate guy. 18 years old, he gets his real estate license right away, starts buying and selling houses, renting them out. And by the age of 26, he was a millionaire. He had over $1 million net worth. He had $4 million in real estate, $3 million in debt-ish, right? And about $250,000 income a year. And that's in the 80s, right? So this is a massive, massive money, especially for a 26-year-old kid. He's driving what he wanted to drive, all these great things, right? But 4 years later, he's bankrupt. And what it came down to was he didn't do anything wrong, except that he used debt to do it. And so as at that point, he started really studying what do wise people, what do millionaires, and what does the Bible teach about financial literacy. And he started looking at these things and studying, and shortly thereafter, at age 32, started a financial coaching ministry with his church. And that was 25 years ago, and he's now helped more people than anyone in the world get out of debt. And he's somewhere in a net worth around 55 million. No, that's even wrong, because he's mentioned how his new building is worth 70 million and it's paid for. So this is the thing. He's got quite a large net worth today, for sure. The mission statement of Ramsey Solutions. And by the way, I say all this as just a background to give people a little bit of information about who Dave Ramsey is, but I'm not affiliated with them at all. I am now a fan because they got me out of debt. Okay. Ramsey Solutions provides biblically based common sense education and empowerment that give hope to everyone in every walk of life. Okay. Quote from him: saving must become a priority, not just a thought. Pay yourself first, right? This is classic wisdom in the personal finance space. Pay yourself first, always. But as you'll see, the Dave Ramsey plan it has a bit of a twist on it as to what that means. So here we go. A little bit of information about Canada specifically for you. I did this research just recently. I'm going to be releasing this on Instagram pretty soon, this picture. Some data for you. 95% of Canadians have at least one credit card. 47% of people that maintain 47% of people who have a credit card maintain a balance. In other words, do not pay it off every month. 70% of those who maintain a balance feel like they can't pay it off within a year. I want you to think about that. The massive amount of people, you just multiply out the math there, that's 11.7 million people in Canada who feel so hopeless about their finances that my credit card debt alone is a year away from being paid off. Okay, and to put this in perspective, that's about a third of Canada, or equivalent to the entire populations of BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick for good measure. Okay, so this is a massive, massive group of people. But on the other hand, we live in a first world country where so much is possible. Check this out. If a 30-year-old couple partially funds a TFSA, $500 a month at 12% interest, how much will they have at 70 years old? That's 40 years of funding a TFSA at only $500 a month. $6 million. Like, let that sink in. $6 million just by putting away $500 a month. If instead of partially funding it, they fully fund it, because they're a couple, they can fully fund $5,500 a year each. In fact, since I made these slides, it's actually gone up to $6,000 a year, but it varies around that point. If they fully fund that, so that'd be $11,000 a year as a couple, we're talking $10.9 million at age 70. Okay. If instead the couple only made $40,000, so let's just real life scenario, they only make $40,000 and all they invest is 15% of their money, $500 a month into a TFSA, well, that's exactly the first case, $5.9 million. Okay. And so this 3-year-old couple, if you invest $1,000 a month, you could have a total of almost $12 million by the time you're 70. And this is just a 30-year-old couple, just investing $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month, it sounds like a lot when you try to put that in your budget in your head. You're like, I can't afford to save $1,000 a month. But when you think about how much we make, like if you make $30,000, your poverty level, but that's still $30,000, right? Poverty level is around there somewhere anyway. If you make $40,000, if you make 50, if you make 70, if you make $100,000, do you realize how much money that is? That is massive. In fact, if you make $100,000 and you want to do this $1,000 a month, well, guess what you have to live on in a year? $88,000, which is way more than many, many people here you can live on. And that is investing $1,000 a month. So the point is that we live in Canada where there is so much potential that there's really not much excuse for not winning. A little bit more about Dave Ramsey here. I love this phrase that normal is broke, be weird. He talks about being weird and being because normal in America anyway, and normal in Canada certainly too, is stressed out, overextended, living paycheck to paycheck, 1 month away from financial disaster. Weird is having no plastic, no credit cards. Weird is having no payments. Weird is having money in the bank and a fully funded, in our case, TFSA, RRSP, right? Weird is having a paid off house. This is weird. And this is what he calls his audience to, be weird. Love this quote from the Total Money Makeover. That's his main book, his best-selling book. It says, find a mirror. I have a challenge for you. Are you ready to take on the guy or girl in your mirror? If you are, you're ready to win. I've rediscovered God's and Grandma's simple way of handling money. Wealth building isn't rocket science, which is a good thing for me and probably for you. Winning at money, listen to this, winning at money is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. Everybody gets so focused on the math. It's all behavior. What to do isn't the problem. Doing it is. Most of us know what to do, but we just don't do it. And I love the comparison here. If I can control the guy in my mirror, I can be skinny and rich. We'll let the other books work on the skinny, and I will help you with the rich part. No, there are no secrets. And yes, this will be very hard. But hey, if it were easy, every moron walking would be wealthy. Okay. So the point is that the comparison is huge between money and weight loss, for instance, is that we all know what to do: eat less, exercise more. That's weight loss. We all know what to do with finances: spend less than you make, pay off debt, build up investments and savings. Like the idea is not hard. The implementation is actually doing it. So today, what I wanted to give you some value on is the keys around making a budget and what a budget really looks like. Okay, so the main paradigms around this. What I did was, as I thought about this, I came up with 6. The main paradigms that you need to have success around making a budget and around keeping a budget. So number 1, to have success with a budget has to be made. Silly, right? You actually have to sit down and make it. Okay. Now, what does that look like? One thing that Dave Ramsey talks about quite a bit is this issue in marriage where you start noticing that in a lot of marriages, you've got the nerd, the person who loves sitting down and planning this kind of stuff, who loves the numbers, who loves spreadsheets, maybe that kind of stuff, who likes to pay the bills, likes to be the one who does the administration. And you've got the free spirit, the person who would just rather not worry about it. Some marriages are both nerds, some marriages are both free spirits, but more often than not, you've got this thing happening where both are there in a marriage. And so what this looks like is that if you're the nerd, great. You get excited when I tell you sit down and make a budget. Awesome. But if you're not the nerd, if you're the free spirit in a relationship and you want to still take this seriously, you've got to sit down and make it. If you're not making it, okay, but you've got to sit down and get the spouse to make it. Like, it's got to be a thing where, okay, honey, let's do this together. I don't want to do this. I don't like doing this, but I think this is that important. We're going to do it. Okay. And the second point is very, very much based around that when you're going to make a budget, it's got to be what's called zero-based. Now, a zero-based budget works like this. Or let me explain by comparing it to the usual way a budget's done. The usual way, and the way I was taught to do a budget back in grade school, was this. You would look at your overall year, right? Take the next 12 months, and what are things generally going to look like? What are all the big expenses coming? What are, like, how much are you making on the year? Take your yearly salary, things like this, and just divide by 12, right? And so you get this idea of an average month. How much are you on average going to spend on food? On average going to bring home? Here's the thing about that, though. That is automatically, first day you made it, wrong. And we were a perfect example of this. My wife, as a nurse, she got paid biweekly. Now, for those of you who never paid biweekly, you know one of the nice things about being paid biweekly is that every now and again, you get an extra paycheck in a month. There are 52 weeks in a year, so there's 26 biweekly periods in a year. But if you're paid twice a month, that's only 24 payments. So with a biweekly payment, there's actually 2 months out of the year where you end up getting a third paycheck. Okay. So if that's true, then if you take your yearly pay and divide by 12, that is a dollar amount you will never receive in a month. It's bigger than 2 paychecks because sometimes you have 3, and so it gets bumped up a bit by that. And it's smaller than 3 paychecks. And so you'll never get that amount. Instantly, you're wrong. And this is the thing. When I look at that, I'm like, there might be some value in that, but on the strategic, on the bottom level of actually getting things to happen, it's not terribly useful. A zero-based budget, on the other hand, says, okay, I don't care what the average is. I care about this month. I'm going to sit down before this coming month begins, and I'm going to write down on paper, on purpose, every dollar that I'm expecting to come in, and I'm going to spend it on paper. Where are the dollars from this month going to go? Right? This month, all the money coming in, where is it going to go? What use is it going to have? And what you do is you assign a job to every single dollar that's coming into your budget. Now, the paradigm on this is just huge. Remember, we talked about it is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. This is a behavior thing. What it does is that what you've done there is you've given every dollar a job, Well, now you're out of the store and you see that awesome item you really want to get, right? That thing you've been really wanting to get, but of course it's not in the budget this month. Well, if you're going to have a zero-based budget, what that means is that the only way to do it is to change it, because every dollar in your budget has a job. If you're going to now assign some of those dollars to buy this toy, well, you have to take them away from their job. And if you're going to take them away from their job, you actually have to move it. In a zero-based budget, there's no such thing as being under budget or over budget. It's always a matter of we change the budget. If I want to put $50 into a restaurant, and we're going to go out for dinner one night, I need to take that $50 from something else. I need to lower something else, or maybe many other things, by a total of $50 to be able to put $50 over here. The income must always equal the outgo. Zero-based. Income equals expenses. Income minus expenses is zero. Now, when I say that, some of those expenses might be savings, right? So you might actually be planning some of your money to be put into savings, and that's okay too. You're spending every dollar, but when I mean spending, I mean you're just choosing where it's going to go. You're giving it a job. Every dollar that's coming in this month has a job. That's what a zero-based budget is, and that is both easier and harder. It is way easy. It's harder. People look at it as harder because, well, with what I just described, you got to make 12 budgets a year, right? One for each month, because every month is different. But it's easier because you're only worrying about 1 month. You're only looking at what's happening this month. And what you find is that as you do 2, 3, 4 of these things, it becomes a breeze. At this point, I'm making a budget in 10 minutes tops, probably usually more like 5. Okay, and it's done, and it's really good because of the third paradigm here. I know my budget's really good, especially by the 3rd and 4th month of doing it, because I track it. Okay, I love this. Somebody on social media recently said that a budget you don't track is only half a budget, and I completely agree, because this was the thing. So when we were trying to get out of debt, we're trying so hard to make a budget and actually stick to it. What I would do is I would make a budget, and then I could never manage to track it. I could never manage to find a workflow, a way of doing things that allowed me to track it in a way that was sustainable. I would track it for a day or a week, and then I would fall off the wagon every single time. On the opposite, though, there were months where I said, you know what, forget this budgeting thing. I'm just going to track my expenses. I want to get a really good idea of what I'm doing. And so I would just focus on tracking, just focus on what every penny I'm spending, and ask the question, what category is that in? And I would meticulously track every penny I spent. And but doing one or the other of those is not the right idea. You've got to do both. You've got to have a budget that you're actually making, and then you're tracking to make sure you're staying with it. Okay? Both are required. This is biblical. Proverbs 27:23 says, be sure to know the condition of your flocks, give careful attention to your herds. Now, back then, this is the Old Testament when this is written. This is a long, long time ago. Most of them were shepherds. That's all. That was their livelihood. The animals were their livelihood. And so when it came down to it, they need to know the condition. Excuse me. If we take today's usual paradigm of a budget and put it in that context, what they'd be doing is something like this. They would say, well, I've got 1,000 sheep. I usually lose 12 a year from death or disease, so I'll probably lose 1 this month. It's an average month. I'll lose 1 sheep. Like, that's like, you realize when you put it in that context that these are third world people living with running their sheep. None of them would even consider running a management plan like that of their sheep, right? They would actually want to know which of my sheep are sick, which of my sheep are about to give birth, right? Which of my sheep, do I have enough food in this pasture to feed them for the next month, right? When it says know the condition of your flocks, there's an inherent built in there of tracking, of actually knowing where stuff is right now, right? So it is both. It is a plan where you are looking through the windshield and you are making a plan to move forward. That's the budget. And at the same time, looking through the rear view mirror, what happened behind you, what has happened, and where are you at along your plan, okay? So it's a both. You can't have one without the other. You can't have success without both, or at least not substantial success. Now, those three things are absolutely required. But then to build onto that, as I said, you need a way to keep this easy. During our get out of debt journey, I tried every month over and over and over to try to make this easy, try to find a way to make this simple, and I could never do it. It took a long, long time. And what it came down to for me, which is really ironic now, is the credit cards. Remember I said I didn't want to do the full Dave Ramsey plan? I did not want to get rid of my credit cards. I loved my credit cards. And I loved the reason was because I loved the points. I never paid a penny in interest to the credit cards. I would put everything on the credit card and then pay it off with my line of credit every single month. And so it was totally fine because I got all the points and I never paid a penny for it as far as I was concerned, except of course I did. Because like I said, from the time my son was born to the time we started the Dave Ramsey plan, the line of credit had gone up, right? So all that credit card debt was just moved onto a better interest rate. That's all it was, but I was still paying interest on it. And so an easy plan. So what it came down to was when I had the credit card, I could never actually track anything. Well, what happened was I pushed hard, made extra money, and got out of debt. We together paid off, let me get the number right here, $39,000 of debt. Yeah, $39,000 of debt in a total of 17 months. Okay, I say those very carefully because what happened was when we got out of debt, it was now the summer, and we took a celebratory road trip. Was it the summer? Maybe the spring, but we took a celebratory road trip to Fargo. Now we're in Winnipeg, so it's only about 3-hour drive south of the States, and we like going there, seeing what's there and buying some nice stuff at Target and all these cool places, right, that weren't in Canada at the time. And so we go down there, and I budgeted this trip just like I had been budgeting for the last year and a half, trying to control our money. And I budgeted that we would come back with $0 essentially, but we would come back without debt. We had just paid off our debt, so I wasn't going to go back into debt. Well, this is the thing. We didn't just come back with $100 or $200 in debt. We came back with $1,800 of credit card debt that I couldn't pay. And that's after months and months of trying so hard to control our finances, to get our finances under control. In fact, we paid off a lot of our debt, but still we had not gained control of the monthly cash flow. And so what happened was we got back in debt, and that was the last straw for me. We had been working for months. I really wanted to keep those credit cards. I'd been working for months to keep them as best as possible. For a while there, I was paying it off weekly, trying to do whatever was possible to keep it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. At that point, I said, nope, done, no more. Credit cards are gone, and we haven't used one since. Credit card free since. Well, during our get out of debt journey, while we were doing all this stuff, I tried at some point Dave Ramsey's Every Dollar app. He has an app that him and his team created for doing a budget like this, a zero-based budget where you track it and all these things. And I tried it, and while I was using my credit card, I absolutely hated it. I despised it. Like I thought it was just an awful app. Like it was hard to use. It was hard to understand. I couldn't get the hang of it at all. Fast forward now I'm out of debt. It took another 2 months, by the way, to pay off that credit card debt. But we're out of debt. Credit cards are done, and I'm still trying to figure this out. I went back and I said, you know what? Let's try the Every Dollar app again. He keeps pushing it on the show all the time. Let's go back and try it again. I went back and tried it again, and this time it was amazing. Things had changed so drastically. Now, the app hadn't changed. What had changed was just me in using the credit card. For whatever reason, the credit card use in my life was just difficult enough, just made the financial life difficult enough that tracking was unsustainable in our lives. And so now that we were credit card free, using the Every Dollar app was spectacular. And in fact, we still use it today. Okay. So this is what happened with us. When we got credit card free and we used the Every Dollar app, now all of a sudden we could actually track our budget. I would make a budget again in 10, 15 minutes. Maybe I wasn't so good back then. Instead of 5 minutes now, it would take 10 or 15 minutes. but then I could track it. Every single transaction, every single penny, I could track it. And over time, we got better and better at tracking. We got better and better at budgeting. And here we are today. And so it's been multiple years at this point since doing that. And we're just seeing massive, massive success in our finances, even still today. So those four are the main essentials to making and keeping a budget. Okay, it's got to be made. It's got to actually be done. It's got to be zero-based. It's got to be tracked. And it's got to be easy to maintain. Those four are absolutely required. But then, if you want a financial plan that's going to work, then you need a proven plan. So the fifth is a proven plan, something that you know is going to work. Because if you're following a broke person's opinion, like you might as well be following a fat person's guide to weight loss. Like, you see what I'm saying, right? Like, I want the person that's going to teach me how to lose weight. I want them to have an 8-pack. I want them to be ripped, right? I want them to know what they're doing and clearly know what they're doing. Same thing. In our finances, we need a proven plan. We need to know that what we're doing is not a waste. And so this is where the Dave Ramsey baby steps come in. It is the program that has helped the most people ever in the history of the world pay off debt, help people pay off their houses, like just help people win financially all over across the board. Number one program. And at the same time, number 6 here, the main aspect of this program that I think is the reason is because of the power of focus. What it does is it says, we're not going to do 17 things at once. We're going to do one thing at a time. We're going to nail it. We're going to do it really well. And when that thing's done, we'll move on to another one thing. But at any given time, we're focusing on one thing. Absolutely beautiful. So this is the baby steps. If you're not familiar, these are the baby steps he created. And the whole idea is a baby step, something you can do first, then one more thing, right? Baby steps. Baby step 1 is $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. So you sit down and you create an emergency fund, which is just $1,000. That's a not enough emergency fund. It's not enough for an emergency. All it is enough to keep the wolf away from the door. That if something's happened, because the next step is pay off your debt. While you're paying off that debt, again, behavior focused. If something was to happen that would force you to go back into debt, right? Force you to actually have to go back into debt somewhere. Well, that is such a brutal hit to the psyche when you're saying, no, I want to get out of debt. I really badly want to get out of debt. But this $600 car repair came out of nowhere and I don't know what else to do. I have no money. In fact, go back in history, Dave Ramsey originally did not have baby step 1. Originally, it was just start off, pay off all your consumer debt, everything but the house. He added it because he saw too many people falling off the wagon by not having this couple $100, $1,000, something small just to be able to move forward when something hits you, just be able to get back up when the world knocks you down. And so $1,000 starter emergency fund just for that. Then baby step 2, now pay off all consumer debt, student loans, that's car loans, that's lines of credit, everything except the mortgage. Okay. Once that's done, baby step 3, now come back and build a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So not your savings dollars, but every month, whatever you're spending on expenses, take 3 to 6 months of that. Baby step 4 is now that you've got this foundation laid on a fully funded emergency fund and no debt, now you start investing. In baby steps 1, 2, and 3, no investing at all. You're not saving for anything. You're just doing the absolute minimum, and you are doing scorched earth lifestyle, he calls it, right? Doing nothing but throw everything at the debt, okay? And then throw everything at the emergency fund. And now in baby step 4, okay, now we come back and we start saving 15% of our money into retirement. And we saw earlier, even 15% can do a lot. Now you continually do that. Baby step 5 is do something for your kid's college. Now it's very vague, because if you have a 17-year-old, if you have a 5-year-old, or if you have no kids, very different situations, right? Baby step 6 then, after you've got baby step 4 and 5 going and done, do something to pay off the house early. And then once the house is paid off, you're on now baby step 7, which is just build wealth, max out everything, and give away massive amounts of money. Okay? This is the baby steps. Now, I want to take a second and talk about my membership. And one of the things I've done to try to help people, help Canadians do really well financially in this area. My goal is to pass along what we were missing 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I hadn't started this program yet. I didn't know what I didn't know. But then I knew the plan and I didn't do it. And I didn't see the reason to go all out. Now I see clearly. So now what I want is to offer people exactly what I saw, what I've seen now that would make me say, if I could go back in time, I would do it all differently. I would do it way differently, because this is a proven system. I want to give the people in Canada, the 11 million people stuck in credit card debt. I want to give Canadians hope that they can retire with money, right? They're not going to have to force their kids to get a school loan when they don't want to, when they themselves were saddled with school loans. I want to give the how-to in Canada in a way that's so easy, you'll keep doing it even when you're tired. So what I did is I created a 5-module course inside my membership where people can go in and learn, and I've given some presentations very similar to this, where people would actually find out how to win financially in Canada. All the hows are in there. But then as well, we've got these twice-a-month member webinars where we get together in a live webinar format and people can ask anything at all. We can go in as deep in their personal finances as they like. We can talk about their specific issues, whatever they're specifically going through, and make it happen, get some serious help. As well, one of the benefits I've recently created is called the Budget Workshop, where what I do is, if a member is willing, they share with me all their details, like all their numbers, their income, expenses, all the little details. I take that information, I anonymize it, and then I make a video where I go through in detail, making up a budget for them to move forward with where they're at financially right now. So in fact, I take away a lot of the excuses of why they can't get started right away, because I want people to have what I didn't have, which was the ability to jump in and land running. Because this is the thing, you can get out of debt and you can do it quickly. We could have done it significantly quicker than we did if we had just followed these rules. Okay, so let's go back and give you some more value here. Let's talk about the do's and don'ts of winning financially in Canada. Okay, here we go. The do's. First off, do a budget specific to you and to the month. Okay, so when you're sitting down, when you're making a budget, it has to be made. It has to be a zero-based budget where it's specific to this month. So I'm recording this in June right now. For June's budget, I had to sit down before June began in May and make a budget that was specific to this month. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what June's going to be like, or better yet, I don't know what July is going to be like right now, right? And so I have to sit down and I have to make a budget that is based on what July, I think, is going to look like. I'm looking through the windshield, looking forward while I'm driving, right? I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe an elk's going to run across the road while I'm driving, right? Moose. I don't know, but I can make plans, and I can plan for what I think is going to happen, right? And so that's what we do. We sit down and we make a budget specific to this month, this next short time period of 30, 31 days, whatever it is, what's going to happen this month. So I'm putting down as close as I can exact values of income of all sources, exact values of expenses, all sources, all places that my money is going, and deciding where every single dollar is going to go. Second, do track it. I have to, once the month starts, now I have to be on every single transaction we spend. And that sounds so overwhelming. Guys, I'm telling you, everydollar.com, the EveryDollar app, I can now walk through it with zero effort. That literally 9:30 at night, I'm exhausted, getting ready for bed. I can have my phone going and I can switch back and forth between my CIBC app and my EveryDollar app. Go to my CIBC app. Oh, there's the next transaction I haven't recorded yet. Switch back to EveryDollar, record it. Switch back to CIBC. Okay, there's the next one. Switch back to EveryDollar, enter it. It's a free app, cost me $0, and in 5 minutes on a nightly basis or every second night, I'm tracking my budget with zero difficulty. It's amazing. Third, do update it. So as I said, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. And so when things change from what they were expected, you've got to update the budget. So for instance, let's say you expected you were going to bring in $1,200 this month as your household income or your income from your paycheck or whatever, $1,200. And when it comes in, it's $1,213. What do? You change the budget. It was $1,200. Now you change it to $1,213. And you say, what's the point, Rob? It's $13. Do that with everything. And it's a massive change. Every little thing that changes. You should never, in an every dollar budget, never be over budget and never be under budget. I used to think that the budget was this thing that you couldn't change, right? It was just sacrosanct. Once you made it, it was done. And I thought about that and I said, what's the point of that? So I made June's budget, and now at the end of June, I'm $200 over on my food. I'm $50 under on my clothes. I'm whatever. I'm over and under. And so all I know now is all the ways I was a bad budgeter, all the ways I was insufficient. I wasn't good enough at budgeting. I wasn't good enough to predict the future of what was actually going to happen. That's what I know. Why do I care? Why do I care about that? What I care about is reality. And so that time when I had budgeted $1,000 for food, and I went to the grocery store, came home, and realized I've now spent $1,050. I have to change the budget. I have to change the budget. It was $1,000, so now I change it to $1,050, what I've actually spent, like to the penny. And then when I've done that, I now have to balance out. I have to leave my budget as zero based, having spent only what I brought in. And so I have to actually lower where the money went in other places. All right. And that's true whether you make more or make less. If I instead I budgeted $1,200 I was going to bring home, and I only brought in $1,175. Well, then I lower my budget to $1,175 in my income, and I need to lower the spending I have by that same amount, $25. I need to take it out of my budget. Okay. So what it does is every time you update your budget, you're making sure that every dollar still has a job. And the dollars you have are the only things that have jobs. You're not over budget, you're not under budget, you're always zero based. Income minus expenses equals zero all the time. Next, communicate with your spouse. Now, we can't know the future, but usually what happens in my life especially is as I talk to my wife, the future becomes more clear. Okay, I don't know about you, but quite often when I actually sit down and I talk with my wife about what's going to happen this month, if there's any confusion, it gets flushed out quite a bit by that conversation. Okay, so communicating with your spouse is massive. It lets you just lock arms, join together, and say, let's attack this thing together. Lastly, the last do I'll say here is do set goals and do get out of debt fast. Okay, if you've got a 5-year get out of debt plan, no good. If you've got a 4 or 3-year get out of debt plan, probably no good. Like the usual person on the Dave Ramsey plan is paying off all their consumer debt in 18 to 24 months. Okay. And so this is the level of intensity you've got to be looking at. You'll be asking, what can I do to sacrifice and cut back and increase income and do whatever so that I'm completely debt free in under 2 years? If you're one of these people, $150,000 in student loan debt plus a car, okay. If you take up to 3 years, okay. But dear Lord, you've got to do it under 3 years. This is the thing. This is where one of the reasons the Dave Ramsey plan works is the power of focus, that all you're doing is this. You're not worried about buying a house. You're not worried about going on vacation. You're not worried about upgrading your car. You're just worried about getting the debt paid off. One thing right now, getting it done. Massive, massive power in that. All right, that's the do's. The don'ts. First off, don't criticize yourself. What I mean by that is it's so easy to stare in that rearview mirror of all the things I've done in the past and just talk about how awful I was, how much I screwed up, how big time I messed things up, how seriously bad that thing was or that thing was, right? It's not worth it. You can't go back in time and change it. So start from where you are today and move forward, okay? Don't worry about the past. focus on moving forward today. What are you going to do now? And with that, if you're making a budget, like let's say you've completely bombed June's budget, and you're at this point, we're about mid-month, midway through June, completely bombed it. You feel like there's no salvaging it. You're like, I'll just wait till July. No, make a June budget for the last 2 weeks only. Whatever it takes, but start today. Do what you can today and get right back on. And that's the third one, actually. I'll come back to that in a sec. Number 2, don't look only through the rearview mirror. As I mentioned, tracking is really important. The past really does influence the future, really does tell us about the future. But it shouldn't be the only thing we look through. We have to look through the windshield. We have to see where we're going and have a plan about where we're going. Okay, so the budget is crucial, but tracking will inform the budget. You have to look in reality about what have you done, but let's look in reality and let's move forward. Okay, like if you've made $2,000 a month for the last 3 years, it would be silly to expect you're going to bring in $3,000 a month this month unless something drastic is changing, right? The past is informing the future, but you still have to make a plan for the future. Okay, don't stay off the wagon. If and when you do fall off the wagon, if you forget to record transactions for 3, 4, 5 days, okay, fine. Take some time and get back on. No criticism. This is just where you're at. Get back on and record those transactions. It doesn't take that long. If you're now looking at this and you're confused, what's this transaction? What's this transaction? Just do your best. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you're building the muscles of how to do this more than trying to focus on the numbers. Like the behavior is so much more important than the head knowledge. The behavior is so much more important than the math. If your budget is wrong slightly, like you put this thing in the wrong category, it's better that you've built the habit of budgeting and tracking than it is that you recorded everything perfect. Okay? Grab a cup of coffee here. All right. Number 4, don't invest in retirement at all in baby steps 1, 2, and 3. Don't invest in retirement at all until baby step 4. So a lot of people I've talked to at some point in the past, or maybe even recently, they were convinced that, you know what, I've got nothing set up for my kid right now. I need to get an RESP going. And so they set up a $50 a week or $50 a month payment that, okay, there's something in there. I can feel good about that. And I can see the logic there, right? You want to do something and it gets something done. The problem is that $50 a month is going to do nothing. If you do that for the entire time from their 0 till 18, you might have enough for a year of school, a year of post-secondary. It's not worth it. Instead, stop all investing of all kinds and throw everything at the debt. Similarly, a lot of people say, well, you know, I get this child tax benefit, which is great, but I always have just thrown that into the RESP or thrown that into the kids funding of some sort, right? Pay for their soccer or pay for their whatever. Put it on the top of the page with your income. And if you choose to put that as your budget item and that's where it's going, okay, but don't invest. Like if you're going to put it towards their soccer, okay. You think soccer is that important, okay. But don't put it in investments. And here's the reason. When you're done, when you're out of debt, and see, this is part of the thing. When I just said that, you thought to yourself, yeah, but I'm never going to be out of debt. It's going to take forever. Well, 18 months, 24 months. Where are you going to be 24 months from now? Your kid's not going to be that much older. You sit down and once you get out of debt, you now have money. Once you get out of debt, you've got control of your greatest wealth building tool, and that's your income. Okay. Once you get out of debt, you have that money to actually put into investments. For years, we had no money at the end of the month to be able to put into an RESP. We never had a hope of moving forward on an RESP. Now that we're out of debt, and by the way, getting out of debt, we didn't make substantially more money from a raise or a lottery win or anything like that, eh? Like I picked up more work because I really wanted to get out of debt. I picked up overtime, but I didn't get a raise, like any substantial raise. And so now that we actually have control of our income, now that our debt is gone, we have money available that we're putting hundreds of dollars every single month into our kids' college fund. Hundreds. And we're seeing massive growth. Like in the short time we've been investing in our ESP, we've already got at least a years of college already. Okay, so this and it's going to grow. Like my eldest is 9 at this point. Okay, it's going to grow massively between now and then. So this is the thing, is that as you're moving forward, you want to view it with complete focused intensity. Do not invest. Do not dilute the process by investing while you're trying to get out of debt. Throw every penny you've got at debt. Last thing, don't give the government too much money. This is a pet peeve of mine because I've been working on this for years. The government in Canada generally takes this rule of thumb as that they want people to owe the money. Or sorry, they want people to have paid too much taxes. So this is how it works. I'll use some nice round numbers. You'll see why. If, for instance, you get as a household, a tax refund of $6,000 in a year. Okay, so in the spring, you fill out your taxes and you get this massive tax refund of $6,000. And you're, woo, yeah, $6,000. Yeah, that's awesome. It's not awesome. Here's why it's not awesome. What that's $6,000, divide that by 12, that's $500. What that $6,000 represents is last January, you made money, and of the money you made, you paid the government taxes, right? Here's the thing. You paid them $500 more than you should have, more than you owed. Like, of what the taxes you were going to pay for the year, you paid them through withholding on your pay stub from work, and then you paid them $500 more than you actually needed to. Okay, and they held it. They said, okay, thank you. And then you did it again in February. $500 that you could have used towards your goals, that you could have used towards your priorities, but you gave it to the government. And then March, you did the same thing. In April, and May, and June, and July, and August, September, October, November, December. Every single month, you gave them $500. Then a few months after the end of the year, you filed your taxes, and they gave you your money back. Here's your $6,000. Enjoy. Zero interest. All they did, like you just gave it to them, and then they gave it back to you. That's what a tax refund is. Tax refunds are dumb. I want my money sooner. I've been working for 5 years now, 5 years to try to get my tax refund down to zero. I've made massive progress, but I'm still getting a tax refund. So it's much smaller than it was. So this is the thing. If you are getting a substantial tax refund, you've got to do something to change it. You might be able to get down to zero. You might be able to get down to close to zero. If I can get sub $500 return, very happy with that. Okay. But this is and you certainly don't want to, not pay your taxes. That says, like, the fact that I pay my taxes says something more about me than it does about the government. I don't think the government is using my tax money well. I think they're using it quite poorly. But regardless, I'm going to pay my taxes because I'm that kind of person. Okay? I'm going to pay every penny of taxes I'm due, but not a penny more, as much as I can help it. I want to get my money back as soon as I can. Okay? So that's the last don't. Now, on that, let me talk to you a bit more about my course and my membership. So inside the membership, you get access to a full course, 5-module course on this. Some of the details about what that course entails. You got an introduction, what's actually possible. Talked a bit about some of the examples I did today and a few more. That really, in a first world country like Canada, we have got so ridiculously many blessings that we should never be retiring broke. Should never happen. Then I have a whole course on the budget, how to make the budget. I have a whole course specifically on mastering the food budget. This is something that so many people struggle with. And it was something we struggled with big time. It was our major struggle as we had, was just getting our food budget really under control. Then I've got two more, one called Getting Off the Ground, which is the first steps in getting started. Like, what do you do and where do you do when? And lastly, the 4 F's of budgeting. And those are the things that can hold you back from budgeting successfully. One of them being failure, right? The things that you run into while you're trying to budget that really can knock you off. As well, I've got some bonus material in there. I've got one, which is a money myths segment, which is talking about a couple things, leases and payday loans, and how bad they really are. There are people in the world who think payday loans are a bad idea and credit cards are horrible. In fact, it's exactly the other way around. I think both of them are things you should avoid, but payday loans are 100 times worse, literally, than credit cards. Okay, payday loans are really bad, and I go through the math and I show that there. Leases, never a good idea. Okay, as well, how to add $1,000 to your budget. This is one of the things. Like after you cut, there's only so much you can cut. Next step, let's start adding to the budget. Let's start making some extra money somehow. Okay, and I've also got one more there. It's not on the list. Techniques and ideas how to get your spouse on board. So a lot of people taking this program, they're really excited about it. They really want to go all on, but their spouse is not excited to do it. The spouse is not on board with the plan. I give you that was my situation. My wife was not excited to do this plan. So this is where I go over some details there, what I did, things that worked for me, things that didn't work for me, and try to help give you some value to help get your spouse on board. Everything else outside the course, again, the member calls. So we sit down twice a month and actually have a live call. Anybody that can make it, and we talk in whatever detail you want about your finances. And we have the recording. So you actually get access to all the past recordings of every member call we've had. Okay. As well, the budget workshops, I mentioned those earlier. If you sign up, and if you sign up even for a month, you can get access to creating a budget workshop for you, where you give me all your numbers. I mean, it actually requires quite a bit of back and forth, because there's a lot of clarification, a lot of situational stuff I need to know to be able to give you a good budget. And then I make it on video, anonymized, so the entire community benefits. Everybody gets to see how to make a budget really well, and you get to benefit because now you've got a budget that you can work with going forward immediately. And last, I've got all my best downloadable tools, all the tools I've made over time, immediately available for download in the course, available anytime. Okay. So in terms of options to sign up, I do have a one-on-one coaching package. If you're interested in that, it's where I would sit with you and even weekly, get on weekly calls with you, where I'm walking with you. You get instant message access to me, where you can just send me a message anytime, day or night, and I'll help you through what you're going through. That is $997 for a 3-month block. Okay, so that is the top level. But what I really push is the membership. And the membership is where you get access to everything I've just described, except the one-on-one coaching. Like, it's not one-on-one, but it's in a group, or a semi-private group sometimes, where you're getting a chance to talk through, you get a chance to access the course, all these things, and get the help you need to move forward. And if you sign up today, I've got a bonus trial offer for that. I'm so convinced this thing has value to it that I'm willing to offer this trial. So head over to WePayOffDebt.ca/trial. And if you do that, you get access to a trial offer to start your first month at a very, very low price in comparison to what it will be in the future. Okay, so definitely check that out. If you have any questions, if you have any struggles, things you're struggling with even now after you're watching this video, feel free to shoot me a message. I'm very open to talking. You can email me, rob@WePayOffDebt.ca. You can find me on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram, all the different platforms. Look up WePayOffDebt.ca and you'll find me on there. I'm always very, very happy to help anybody that needs it, and because I really want people to experience the same massive transformation we have. So I hope that brought you value. Please don't forget WePayOffDebt.ca/trial. Go sign up there. And if you need anything at all, please feel free to contact me. Have a good one. We'll talk to you again soon.